Next on BYUSN, the Cougars take down number 21 Creighton in Vegas. Does this mean BYU could take down the Utes on Saturday?
And Texas and Oklahoma may be looking to leave the Big 12 early. Are they scared? Probably not.
Scared of the buyout, maybe. Welcome to BYU SportsNation, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Great to have you. It's Monday, December 12th. In December, I always know the dates because we have 3 advent calendars going, so the kids are always grabbing stuff.
Meaning you're grabbing the chocolate is what that means.
It's not all chocolate. It's mainly little toys. But I'm Jarom Jordan. He is Jason Shepard, repping track and field today.
Yeah, look, I rep all of the sports here in the athletic department.
I haven't seen a tennis shirt quite yet.
I do not own a tennis shirt. If I would love to rep it.
No,
I'm not. I'm just saying if I had it, I would certainly rep it, and I would rep it with a smile on my face.
You always do.
Yes. All right, on today's show, by the way, speaking of repping, former Cougar Trevor Matich reps the Cougs all the time. He will join the program. What does he think of new defensive coordinator Jay Hill? We will ask him. Richie Saunders will be in studio as we relive the upset victory over number 21 Creighton. Oh, what a massive win for the BYU Cougars. We will talk about that coming up a little bit later on as well. And one of BYU's best players enters the transfer portal. We'll get into that. Here are today's headlines.
BYU men's basketball takes down number 21 Creighton in Las Vegas 83-80 thanks to another game winner from true freshman Dallin Hall.
Dallin runs it around the arc right, runs it to the right block, at the rim missing, tip is scores it! The follow tip!
Indeed it was, as BYU takes down the Blue Jays. Rudy Williams led the Cougars with 26 off the bench, 7th most in a game for a bench player in BYU history. Cougars host Western Oregon and Utah Thursday and Saturday.
Women's basketball falls to number 15 Utah on Saturday, 76-59. Nani Falatea and Lauren Gustin each scored 18 points. Gustin extended her double-double streak to 10 games. She also added 15 rebounds. The Cougars began WCC play on Saturday with a road matchup against Gonzaga.
Got a bunch of football news. Here we go. Kingsley Suamatia named second-team freshman All-American by The Athletic. Keenan Peely enters the transfer portal. More on that later. Preston Hadley reportedly following Ed Lamb to Northern Colorado as defensive coordinator, according to ESPN's Adam Rittenberg. Tate Romney joins Jacob Conover at Arizona State. And multiple reports have former Cougar player and coach Garrett Tujay going to NC State as the offensive line coach, with Robert Anae as offensive coordinator.
This coming out this morning, Brett McMurphy reporting that there is momentum around Texas and OU leaving the Big 12 a year early. The Longhorns and Sooners set to leave currently after the 2024 season and begin play in the not the WCC, the SEC. That would be big news.
That'd be quite the news.
That would be big news. To begin play in the SEC in 2025, according to the report. Both schools could leave the Big 12 after 2023 and be ready to go in the SEC 2024.
Okay, we'll see. We'll talk about that in a second. Cougars in the NFL. Jamal Williams had 16 carries for 37 yards in a Lions win against the overrated Vikings, whose Kyrus Tonga had 2 tackles.
How about them Lions?
Pretty good. They're knocking on the playoff door. Fred Warner, 8 tackles in a blowout win for the Niners against the Bucs.
He likes to be called Pete, by the way. Kyle Van Noy had 2 tackles and a sack, and fellow Charger Michael Davis had 2 tackles and 2 passes defended in a win over the Dolphins last night on Sunday Night Football.
Indoor track and field held the BYU December invite over the weekend. Sebastian Fernandez wins the 800, 5th best time at BYU 148.84. Caleb Witskin wins the pole vault, and Adobe Tabubo wins the 60-meter hurdles and finishes 2nd in the 60-meter dash.
And some very sad news. Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach currently in critical condition at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson. Leach was hospitalized last night with what the university called a personal health issue. They issued that in a statement. The Clarion Ledger reporting this morning that Leach had a massive heart attack on Sunday in Starkville, obviously keeping the former BYU graduate in our thoughts and prayers right now as he deals with a very serious health issue.
100%. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending. What's Trending is presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event. What a win for the BYU Cougars against number 21 Creighton, the Dallin Hall game winner with 12 seconds to go. That's twice now. Dallin has done that just months off of his mission. So, Sheb, how would you describe how badly BYU needed that win?
Yeah, they needed it really bad. And look, they needed a win against whoever it was. The fact that it came against a ranked team, and I do not care that Kalkbrenner did not play for the Blue Jays.
I do for fantasy.
Well, okay. But in terms of the game, that I'm not even worried about that. BYU needed a win against anybody, and the fact that they got it against a ranked opponent that, granted, had come in losing 3 in a row.
Yeah.
The teams they had lost to were the number 2 team, the number 14 team, and Nebraska. So this is a team that was playing well, and at times in this year had been ranked as high as number 7. Mm-hmm. So I think what I took away the most was just how resilient BYU was, because the Blue Jays come out and they're hot from 3, and BYU could have wilted under that, because here we go again, a situation like that. But they didn't. They kept fighting back, and I love the way that they did it. Whether it was Rudy Williams, whether it was Richie Saunders, whoever it was, they were driving to the basket. They were getting opportunities at the rim, and I loved it. If the outside shot isn't falling, take it to the rim, and I thought Rudy was absolutely brilliant doing that. Now, obviously, things got much closer at the end than what we all would have liked. I'm going to assume they're going to work on the press a lot this week. I know they already do, but yeah, some really costly turnovers could have cost BYU the game, but the fact that they were able to fight from that as well, come back, you mentioned Dallin Hall, following up his own missed shot, getting the board, that was a much-needed win, and hopefully something that can be a turnaround game for this program moving forward.
Yeah, we'll talk about the next step in a sec, but just straight up, your point is exactly right about it didn't matter who BYU played. They just needed to win. And to have it be Creighton, a team that really took it to BYU. BYU lost by 12 last year. It felt like 28. That was a big win. And no Kalkbrenner. Yeah, there was no Spencer Johnson for BYU either, who at one point was BYU's leading scorer. Kalkbrenner, 7-1. Like a 18-7 guy, shooting like 76%. That was a big deal that he didn't play. Didn't hurt me in fantasy, luckily. But the point is that BYU won. The point is that BYU won, and they got one of those wins, like a San Diego State, now a Creighton, a Utah on Saturday. It makes it way more interesting, because we saw the high from this team. What was the high before this, Yep? Beating Missouri State at home, Nichols,
19 threes against Westminster.
The comeback versus Dayton. Why are you going down by so much? It was certainly the Dayton game, but no, we don't reference it. By the way, BYU I think has made 18 threes since the Westminster game. It's been 3 games, so they used all of them up in that one game, unfortunately. Big time win, really resilient, like you said. Obviously, BYU up 11 with 3:26 to go. I put my feet up. I was like, hey, we're cruising to this win. No. Suddenly, BYU turns it over 6 times in 2:14. That was terrible. Terrible. We'll talk to Richie Saunders about, okay, how did you guys, navigate that? Because you could have totally collapsed. They suddenly are down with 26 seconds to go, and Dallin Hall rise up. When in BYU history has BYU, when it had upperclassmen, chose to use a freshman in this way? Yeah. I'm not talking about Mark Bigelow as a freshman and BYU's trying to rebuild the program type stuff. This is a situation where you have a 5th-year senior in Rudy Williams, and you've got other guys who have been at Jackson Robinson's been at two SEC programs, that you're choosing to use a true freshman. It says a lot about Dallin and him making that shot and following it up, which was ironic because he had struggled to shoot the ball in this game. Reminded me a little bit of Craig Cusick versus Utah State, where Craig was terrible in that game.
Good call.
Going through a lot off the court, obviously, with his dad, finding out that day he had cancer. But Dallin in this game, struggles in the same way that Craig did in that game. Game-winning shot. Yep. Didn't matter. All's forgiven.
Yeah, BYU needed a win. They got it. Now we get to see what a win like that can do for this program. As you mentioned, 2 games. You have Western Oregon Thursday, and then your rival coming in on Saturday.
Utah's top 20 net.
Yes.
This is a quad 1 home game for BYU that is certainly going to be very interesting. And now I'm way more excited for that game than I was pre-Creighton, because obviously before Creighton it was what is this team right now? Oh my gosh, they're not playing great ball. Nice win. Hopefully they cruise through D2 Western Oregon, and then, hey, big game with Utah, which is the second half is during the bowl game.
That's
we got
right.
a little head-to-head.
There'll be a lot of overlapping of football and basketball coming up on Saturday.
But everyone will be listening to you.
Yes.
Call the game on the
Yes,
radio.
Greg will be calling the football game on radio. I will be calling the basketball game on radio. So it should be a fun day. Hopefully 2 wins. That's the hope, obviously.
I'll take one of them right now. I would take, if you put me to that, I'll take one.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit, and we referenced this in headlines. Brett McMurphy, who obviously we've had on this show many, many times, friend of the program, he mentioned that there is momentum building with Texas and Oklahoma possibly leaving for the SEC a year early. Obviously, there is a buyout involved.
So Oklahoma can afford it now?
Well,
because we knew Texas could.
Yes. Well, there was always going to be negotiation on that buyout, but it kind of felt like everybody had pushed that to the side because you hadn't heard a lot about it. Brett McMurphy saying that maybe instead of leaving after the 24 season, they're going to be in 1 year with the 4 new schools and then bail to the SEC. Do you care if Texas and Oklahoma are in the Big 12 and BYU gets there?
Well, they will be for at least a year, right? It sounds like.
Do you care if they
do I
leave
want
early?
them for 2? I do. I want them in. I just think it'll be fun. We'll have the league without them for plenty of time. I would like them in for 2 because a reminder to everyone, BYU is 4-1 versus Texas and 2-0 versus Oklahoma in football. I would like to keep that going. That's pretty good. And like in women's volleyball, Texas was number 1 for most of the year. If they come to Provo, that's an exciting game. More of those type of matchups. Obviously, every game you play in any sport with those two, big brands, big names, really good at almost everything. Yeah, I care. I want them in the league for 2. And it would also increase the possibility of home games with them in football. And so I say, 2. Because if it was just 1 and BYU suddenly plays 2 road or not at all, it's like, missed a chance to get some quality games there.
Yeah, if the original plan was for the 4 new schools, and this is kind of what I theorized on the show last week, that the 4 new schools probably aren't going to get both of them in the same year. You're probably going to get one year and one the other, and let the we don't know.
We'll see.
I was just throwing that out there. If you don't get one of them, that would certainly stink. Do I care? Ultimately, no. I'm in the mode with this that with BYU in, that's what I care about.
But we've known that for over a year now. Now we can move on to better things.
I still want BYU's first game. Like that's when this is all going to be real. All the other stuff, I don't care too much about. Once we're in it and we have things to be able to talk about in the conference, then I can start worrying about we didn't get to face Oklahoma. Right now, I just want BYU in. I'm happy that they're in, and I look forward to the schedule coming out next year.
You're afraid they won't be in?
No.
They're in already?
We know they're in. I just want to see it. Once we get to July 1.
What, the schedule?
No, that it's done. Like, that it's official. We start seeing logos on
see,
stuff.
Like legal paperwork?
I just want it to be officially official. And I want to see logos on fields. We saw UCF.
You're afraid Mom and Dad are going to break up?
But we saw UCF over the weekend, social media putting out the Big 12 logo on their field.
You have swag with logos.
I know. Don't take this away from me. I just want that moment.
More.
So the other stuff, I don't care about. If we don't play them, fine. As long as BYU's in, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm past that. I'm just ready for and perhaps this has thrown a wrench into the scheduling situation.
Maybe that's why it's taken so long.
Because, and you brought this up in our pre-show meeting, is what if they say, well, we had 2 years worth of, okay, this is how we're going to deal with Texas and Oklahoma, and da-da-da-da-da. Now they're only in for 1. Does that change things?
Right.
I would think perhaps it changes the scheduling.
I would think it has to change. In the report from McMurphy, he says that both conferences seem to be okay with this, that the Big 12 is fine with them leaving. Obviously, they're going to get some money out of it. And the SEC is fine with them coming in a year early, where there's going to have to be some negotiation is with ESPN, because does ESPN want a diluted product when they've already paid for a certain number of teams to be in through 2024?
Yeah.
And do they want then to have to pay extra in the SEC if they go early? So really, they say
they're getting them either way.
Yes, they're getting them either way. So, but it sounds like that's where the negotiation part is. It sounds like everybody involved wants it to happen.
I can't wait to look through all the legal paperwork for that. Oh wait, I'm not.
I'll get it when I get it and everything's official. Yeah. I'll send you an email.
Send your paralegal to go grab it. This just in: left tackle Blake Freeland named 3rd team All-American according to the Associated Press. So we would assume that Blake is BYU's only All-American with that. And congratulations to Blake. That's big time. We'll see if he comes back to BYU or he goes to the draft. We'll see. I would imagine he goes to the draft, but it'd be nice if he came back. Okay, let's hear from you in Voice of the Nation. Our question of the day is this. Is the win over Creighton a turning point for BYU basketball? Weigh in on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Nathan Point on the Twitter. The Creighton result shows that BYU can play with good teams. We saw that against San Diego State as well. The South Dakota result shows that they can also play down to bad teams. Turning point? I hope so. I would imagine that a team is what they do against not the high, not the low, but the middle.
Right.
So throw out Creighton and San Diego State, throw out South Dakota and Utah Valley. That is who BYU is. It's still a team that has a lot of work to do, even make the NIT, frankly.
Yes.
But that was nice to feel that because, good gosh, after South Dakota and Utah Valley, it was like, oh, man, this may be the worst BYU basketball team in a while. Nope, they showed us that they are better than that, which is good. Let's keep it going, baby.
All right, Greg Wrubell and the coach Mark Pope look back at a wild win over 21st-ranked Creighton on BYU basketball with Mark Pope this week. Also, a look ahead to Western Oregon and the rivalry game against Utah. You can watch that tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern Time on the BYU TV app.
And up next, ESPN's Trevor Matich is back on the show, talking about Jay Hill, the transfer portal, a potential New Mexico Bowl without Jaron Hall, perhaps. This is BYU SportsNation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event.
Utah is a special place. Our communities, the people, the history. There is no place quite like Utah. At Siegfried and Jensen, we're honored to say that we are from Utah. We live here, work here, and when someone is injured, we're proud to say we've helped a neighbor when they've needed it most. We know Utah. At Siegfried and Jensen, we're here for you.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
If you're looking to build your brand awareness and increase market share as BYU moves into the Big 12, this is the place, BYU Athletics. We can provide the tools you need to make sure your company is seen and heard. BYU Athletics is where you can align your products and services with loyal fans that cheer for our Cougars. And they can also help your business win. Learn more about what a partnership with BYU Athletics and your company will look like. After all, this is the place. Email sponsorship at byu.edu today.
We made ornaments in my class at school. Can I put mine on the tree?
Fun. What'd you make it out of? Popsicle sticks?
Nope. A chicken.
Oh!
Welcome to the Studio C Best of Christmas.
Doctor, refocus! The Grinch's heart is too big!
We don't have any figgy pudding.
Let's see what life would be like without you.
It's beautiful.
This is just like I imagined it would be.
This is like the least wise thing I have ever done.
That is the greatest music video for a 7-5 team in the history of college football music videos. Welcome back, Jarom Jordan, Jason Shepard. We took 1 week off with Trevor Matich, and we've got a ton to talk about. So let's jump right in with ESPN's Trevor Matich. First off, welcome back to the show. Good to see you. Let's talk about Jay Hill, hired as associate head coach, defensive coordinator. What do you think of the move for BYU?
This is a home run hire. He brings so much on the field and off the field. And when it comes to on the field, he's got an attacking style of defense. And I think most BYU fans would say, it's about time. I mean, I, for one, got a little tired of watching BYU sit back, read and react, and just catch what offenses were doing and try to keep everything in front of them. Coach Hill's style is to dictate to the offense, to pressure them into having to respond, to pressure them into making mistakes. Now, there's a flip side to that, because the danger is that you leave guys in man coverage on the back end, and the offense can make big plays as well. But I would rather use that attacking style, especially when you have the kind of linebackers that BYU already has, which is fast guys that love to attack. And then off the field, the recruiting is off the charts. He's a phenomenal recruiter. He's a phenomenal developer of young men, and just his energy, I think, will infuse something into the program that will take it to the next level.
Trevor, he's probably got a very lengthy to-do list as he jumps into this new job here on campus. What do you think should be priority number one from him?
Well, Shep, it is in recruiting. It's in personnel, and that is both in recruiting current players to stay and not enter the portal, players that he wants to keep, and in recruiting outside players. And I think he's the kind of guy that can help put a fence around the state of Utah, and that's important. We have talked a lot about moving to the Big 12 and how important it is to bring people into the program at some level that have an intimate understanding of the Texas high school football scene, and then that is important. But the first priority is Utah. It's the local players. There are a lot of phenomenal players in the state of Utah that end up leaving the state or going up north. And I think that because of his time at Weber State, because of his relationships with high school coaches around the state, Coach Hill will be able to keep some of those players home at BYU, and that's an important thing. Ultimately, it's about talent, but it's also about belief. And players stay without leaving the portal, and recruits come because they believe that they can thrive. I think because of his track record and because of his charisma, Coach Hill can infuse that kind of belief. And it all comes down to the guys in the room and them believing that they could win, and they can win through aggression. And I love that.
And there will always be players leave, regardless of how good the season goes or who the coaches are and how good they are. It just is what it is. And at this point, 7 players have left for BYU, a few notable ones in Keenan Pili, as we mentioned in headlines. What do you think of what's going on with the portal in BYU right now?
You know, every team has this happen to them. And for BYU, I think it's important to look at why some of the players may have left. I mean, Tate Romney, linebacker, went to Arizona State. That's closer to home for him. And if that's the main reason, I can't blame him for that. Keenan Pili does surprise me because he's exactly the kind of linebacker that thrives in the new system that the Cougars will be running, that the attacking, the downhill, the multiple looks for the quarterback, the dictating. And that kind of scheme is something that he would excel in. So the fact that he's leaving, I mean, I don't know why he's leaving. There may be some personal issue. It may be something to do with NIL. And these are all things that I think are important to understand on an individual basis before we say, yeah, this is good, or, oh, this is bad for BYU. I don't know the answers to that. What I do know is that what they're creating now is something that players will want to be in.
Well, and like you just said, look, right now the focus is on the guys that are entering the transfer portal to leave BYU. Obviously, BYU is going to be using the transfer portal to bring guys in as well. What positions do you think should be top priority for the Cougar coaches as they go into the portal to look for players?
Well, assuming that Jaron Hall goes to the NFL, they'll need to look for an elite quarterback. But if you are a quarterback in the portal looking for a place to go, what features do you want to have? Well, you want to have a place that has a track record of getting guys drafted into the NFL. BYU has that recently. And you want a place where the offensive line can protect you. BYU on paper certainly has an experienced, talented offensive line coming back, even if they lose a couple of guys to the NFL. They've got a young, dynamic group of wide receivers and some outstanding prospects at running back. And if you're a quarterback in the portal, you're thinking, man, I could parachute into this thing and have success right away. So that's one thing. Another thing is maybe more backup quarterbacks to add to the competition to the room if Jaron Hall does decide that he wants to stay. And then there's disruptors on defense, because with this new style that they're playing, they need guys that can get upfield into the backfield and mess with the quarterback, even if they don't sack him. Make him uncomfortable. Stop running backs in the backfield before they get started. That's important as well. And if I'm one of those guys in the portal, I'm looking at BYU as now a place that I can go and have my skills as a disruptor be maximized. Same way for cover guys on the back end, because this scheme will require multiple guys who can lock down one-on-one. And BYU, I think, is going to go towards where other teams have gone, which is taller, lankier, longer corners that can cover. And if I'm one of those guys, I look at BYU as a place that I can go in and thrive and showcase my talents because of the way the scheme will be going forward. And so when you talk about quarterback, disruptors up front, and cover guys on the back end, I think BYU has a very clear path towards what they might be looking for first in the transfer portal.
And we saw one of those on display in the NFL last night. Michael Davis with the Chargers getting some props from Chris Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football. Let's talk about the New Mexico Bowl matchup with SMU. Certainly a talented team coming in on fire, 5-2. Those 2 losses in their last 7 to Tulane and Cincinnati. This is going to be a challenge for BYU, and we'll see if Jaron Hall plays. Got that ankle injury. We don't know the severity at this point.
Yeah, we don't, and it's important that BYU understand. Well, they do understand. It's important the quarterback matchup here, because if Jaron Hall can go and if he's healthy, then you've got a truly fair fight with Tanner Mordecai of SMU, the transfer from Oklahoma to SMU, one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in all of college football. Now, it looks like, won't have his top receiver, his top offensive lineman. So there's some uncertainty over on that side as well. But if it turns out that Jaron Hall can go, then you're looking at a potentially high-scoring game that'll be tremendous fun to watch. If Jaron Hall can't go, then I don't think BYU wants to get into a track meet with whoever would replace Hall against Tanner Mordecai in that SMU offense. I think you'll see more of what they did against Stanford, which is to say, pound the ball, take the air out of the clock, and go to a style fight instead of a matchup on the track. And so it'll be interesting to see what Jaron Hall decides he wants to do or what he's able to do, because the style of this game will be dictated by that one position.
Trevor, let's hit some big picture topics here. Let's go to the NFL. Zach Wilson obviously losing his starting job in New York with the Jets. Mike White has come in, won the first game, haven't won since, and he got beat up really bad yesterday against Buffalo. Clearly, Joe Flacco's not the answer. Do you think there's a scenario where we see Zach Wilson back as the starting quarterback of the Jets before the end of the year?
I think it's possible, especially if Mike White continues to be limited by his injury. The Jets are in a playoff race, and they owe it to everybody in that locker room to put the quarterback in that the team thinks will best get them to the playoff, or at least get them the best chance to go to the playoff. And that's what Zach needs to do, is he needs to, behind the scenes and then on the field in practice, and then if he plays in the game, he needs to show his teammates through his actions that he's that guy. Whether it'll happen, I don't know, because I think right now the team really rallied around Mike White, and I think the coach wants to kind of keep that momentum going as long as he can. But if White turns out to be slowed down now by defenses who now have more tape on him and they know how to stop him, then it may well be that Zach will be back in. I think this whole thing will be good for Zach, because it gives him a chance to kind of sit back, take a look at things without the pressure of being the starter, understand a little bit better what he can do better to maximize his performance, and then step back in. And very often, that's the catalyst that leads young quarterbacks into going to the next step. And so I could see him coming back. Either way, he certainly needs to be ready, not just if he comes back, but if he doesn't, to help Mike White be the best quarterback he can be for the Jets, because that will be the next step in his progress as well.
And the Jets want it now. They're the first out in the AFC playoff picture as we speak. Let's finish with this. Mike Leach, who graduated from BYU, certainly part of the Cougar family here, Mississippi State head coach, in critical condition after suffering a massive heart attack. Certainly we hope for a speedy recovery and hope that all goes well with Mike. You got to know Mike over your time not only at BYU when he was here as a student playing rugby, but also covering college football. What's your reaction to this news with Mike?
Yeah, Jarom, in my tours before COVID, when I would drive around the country and visit campuses, I saw a coach at Texas Tech, at Washington State, at Mississippi State most recently. And he is a different guy than I think a lot of people realize when they look at him from the outside in. A lot of people think he's this gruff dude. And no, he's a lot of fun. He is tremendous fun. A lot of people think of him as a finesse coach because he throws the ball around the field so much. But actually, his style is that of an old school hard-nosed, hardcore football coach that would fit in the 60s and 70s very well. And he has always been so gracious. I mean, my wife Dana came with me to Mississippi State last time we went down there, and he was gracious to her as well. It was just it was a wonderful trip for both of us. And so both she, my wife, and I joined the rest of college football in wishing the best to Mike Leach, because he is one of the, not just one of the characters, but in my opinion, he's one of my favorite people that I've ever been around in this entire sport.
Well, we hope the best for Mike. And Trevor, we appreciate the time. Best of luck with everything going on with you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Trevor.
ESPN's Trevor Matich here on BYU Sports Nation.
Join Dave, Blaine, David, Bryant, and Spencer for BYU Sports Nation game days. They preview and get you ready for the New Mexico Bowl. It's already here. Watch Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on BYU TV.
And somebody on Twitter claimed a Utah State WCC title based on the criteria we established in 2021 with the Pac-12. Do we agree? This is BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
This is where we dominate. Our playground, place of business. This is our promised land, where we seek to find ourselves. And we're here to make sure the spaces our best prove themselves on appear how they should. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Before I was a coach at BYU, or before I was even a player, I was a BYU fan.
We've got great energy as a team, but we have even better energy because of our fans, and it's absolutely magical.
When you hear the crowd roar, that makes it more exciting, more of an adrenaline rush.
The roar of the crowd, you can feel it on the floor, you can feel that energy, and it's unlike anywhere else in the country. BYU Sports, it's all about the fans.
This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show and get great content throughout the day, follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
He is Shep. I'm Jarom. Let's whip it. Google Whip Around is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
Keenan Pili enters the transfer portal. How big of a loss is this for BYU?
I think it's a big loss. He's your starting middle linebacker. Yeah. I think it's a big deal. Unfortunately, he wants to go elsewhere. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, because not every dude that transfers is created equal. Impact, anticipation, leadership, skill, and
not
talent.
Everybody that enters the transfer portal leaves either, by the way.
True. So maybe Keenan comes back. But yeah, that one hurts. That one hurts.
Yes.
The quarterback of the defense.
Yes, yeah, it hurts. It's a big loss if this is the way it goes. Look, and we got firsthand knowledge of what the defense looked like without him the year before when he was hurt. So, yeah, this is a big loss.
And even with him this year,
yes,
it still struggled. It's a collective unit. It's not all on Keenan, right? But certainly it's a...
You do not want to lose guys like Keenan Pili.
You don't want to lose a Keenan Pili.
Yep.
No, good backer. The Jets' Mike White, one of your favorite quarterbacks in the NFL, left the game yesterday after sustaining an injury, came back in. Right? Zach Wilson was inactive for the game, but the White injury and Joe Flacco struggling. Do you feel like, and we just talked to Trevor about this, that we will see Zach Wilson in the final 4 games for the Jets at all?
Look, so much is going to be determined on Mike White's health. They clearly like what they see out of him. If maybe if Mike White is healthy, maybe the scenario that plays out is that they're out of the playoff race, they've got some games still to play, and they want to see Zach in some of those games before the end of the year. Maybe that's the way we see it. I would like to think we do, but right now it's all dependent on Mike White's health.
I would guess if there's no further injury stuff that we won't see Zach.
It probably not.
I just think they've seen what they wanted to see.
It's crazy that has changed so quick.
Sports escalates quickly.
Very quickly.
Right? Like the fight in Anchorman. But it just, it stinks, It stinks. We want to see Zach thrive, and right now on the bench.
All right, it stinks that BYU women's basketball lost to their rival Utah.
Yes,
what doesn't stink is that Lauren Gustin continued her double-double streak. She's now at 10 games in a row with a double-double. How many games this season will she not have a double-double?
What are they going to play, like 31 regular season games? I'll go like 4, that few, all year that she doesn't have one. There'll be a 9 rebound night, a 7. There won't be a game where she has fewer than 6. You know what I mean?
Look,
it's incredible.
You've got to assume eventually the streak ends. I'm not counting on it. I'm saying
Just,
0.
It goes
zero.
the distance,
0.
Baby. Michael Bolton. I could go the distance.
Let me just tell you, I am not going to bet against Lauren Gustin getting a double-double in every game the rest of the year. Why would you bet against her? That's what she does.
It's what she does. In fantasy, she's getting me a ton of points, so I love it. She's great. San Diego and Pitt made the women's volleyball Final Four. Was BYU's schedule tougher than we thought?
Probably, yeah. And look, we can say that with hindsight. You never know. When you look at a schedule, you'll always play the win-loss thing. And then afterwards, like, okay, well, we thought that was going to be a loss, and it was a win. Hindsight's 20/20, but probably.
7 losses in all for BYU.
Yeah.
4 of them to those 2 teams.
Yes, I know.
2 San Diego, and then Pitt was regular season and obviously in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Yeah, it was tough. BYU still needs another pin hitter to join Aaron Livingston for BYU to be Sweet 16 good again, which I anticipate they will be next year.
What are your thoughts on tougher schedules?
I love them. Okay. When you're rewarded for them. In football, you are not.
Just teeing them up.
In men's basketball, you are, Shep.
Okay.
We can quantify it.
All right. Matt Harris on Twitter points out the following. This is very interesting.
Yep.
Matt says this. Utah State has non-conference wins against Santa Clara, San Diego, San Francisco, and LMU.
This is men's basketball.
Yes. Per rules instigated in 2021,
he's referring to us.
They are this year's West Coast Conference champions. Does he have a point here under the rules in which he states?
Initially, yes. With those regular season wins, yeah. But you didn't beat the champ, which is Gonzaga, okay? Had they beaten the Zags, they could do what we did in 21, which is, BYU beat Utah, the champs, and 4 other teams, including USC, by the way, a year before they almost made the playoff. How about that? I know they switched coaches and net transfers, but we'll take all those wins.
Look, I get where he's going, and at the risk of, trying to avoid what we did last year, no, he's kind of right. He's kind of got a point. If they
didn't even play St. Mary's or Gonzaga.
But here's the deal. If we took heat for it, we would be pressing forward.
Wait, hold on. Did he print a banner?
It's not over yet. It's not over yet. There may be an opportunity for a banner. I'm going to just give him.
It's not over yet?
I'm going to give him this.
Did they beat the champs?
I'm going to give him this because it's funny, and it also is an opportunity for us to talk about how dominant BYU was against the Pac-12 last year.
It's close, but no cigar. Okay, in the final moment of the BYU versus Creighton game, a family from Creighton took a picture. Got video of this from BYU fans, capturing just the final moment. It's on the right. Is this an acceptable time to do this when the game wasn't officially done or it was ending? Should they have been watching?
Yeah, court awareness, situational awareness was lacking.
Thank you.
There.
Safety's
however, I am going to say it is acceptable because now they will forever be able to relive the moment when BYU won the game.
Well, it was essentially over. BYU's up 3 with the ball, 0.6. Yeah, so it's fine. But there were a lot of smiles on the faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. All right. It's tough. Not for BYU fans.
Listen as BYU basketball hosts Western Oregon. No, I'm just kidding. Western Oregon on Thursday with Cougar Pregame Live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on BYU Radio. Hey, I host that show.
Yeah. Hey, that's awesome. And look who's here. Richie Saunders, big part of the Creighton win. He's in studio to break it down. Big week with Utah on Saturday as well. Western Oregon. This is BYU SportsNation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
Is all about the rivalries.
Red. Ooh, quarterback. Wide out. Rewards. Wait, what?
My style, checking rewards.
My style. Right.
For Mountain America's My Style Checking, it's all about the benefits.
Loan discounts.
But it's hard to pick a favorite.
No. Mobile phone protection. Tell my how. You're going to need that when we're done. I heard that. Let's go.
Get the account rivaled by no one. My Style Checking from Mountain America.
Quick crack. Wash all you want. Don't drive dirty.
There are things happening in Seaburg.
They care more about people spending money than they do about people getting sick.
If they're causing toxic pollution, it is everyone's fight. We can't just let them get away with it.
If anyone can figure this out, it's my brother.
Friends don't abandon each other.
Fine. Be heroes.
I know what it's like to love someone so much you'd do anything for them.
Whatever happens, I'm glad we're facing it together.
Me too.
I told them it's all in the wrist. Wrist. They want me to miss, but that's a wish. If I don't take the shot, it's an assist. But either way it go, boy, that's a swish. I told them it's all in the wrist.
Richie Saunders getting it done this season for BYU. Welcome back, Jarom Jordan, Jason Shepard. We welcome the aforementioned Richie Saunders to the program. 10.6 rebounds, 3 assists in the game. Congratulations on the win over Creighton. That was a crazy one.
Crazy. We pulled it out, though, which is awesome.
Okay, a lot to digest. So first off, take me back to 2 hours before the game when you guys finally get the news that Ryan Kalkbrenner isn't going to play. Their 7-1 shot blocker. That changed the game plan, Mark Pope said, quite a bit.
100%. Like, we were all focused on how we were going to tag him, so when he rolls, how we're going to hit him, like how we're going to rebound against him. But that's what the game is. You got to be flexible.
And you guys played without Spencer Johnson, so it wasn't like every team was full
100%.
bore. Yeah.
What did that win mean to you guys? How badly did you need that win?
We needed it. Like, it's been like a super emotional roller coaster of a week. But like we didn't let it affect us, and we came ready to play. But it meant a lot.
How did you not let it affect you? Because certainly those 2 losses are not 2 that you had thought were going to happen this year.
Yeah, like we focus all the time on getting better every day, and like. Coaches did something like that. I was like, instead of just like freaking out and just telling us like how bad we suck, like they took a different approach and just said like, all right, like this sucks, but let's get better. So we were in the next morning, early in the morning, and watching film and just using it to, as hard as it is to take those lessons, but using it to improve our game and improve our team.
Where do you think you got better in that game? Because, some of the things that you guys went through had plagued you in some of the other games that didn't end so well. So what was the difference, do you think, in this one?
Like we came out with a different aggression. Like it was just a different aggression. We came out ready just to show who we were instead of just kind of being more passive. I honestly think that's what it was.
And in this game, you guys started shooting the ball better from 3 defensively. You guys were in the lanes, getting the deflections. Foose was doing work as well. And then, of course, it comes down to this play. Let's just talk about the game winner with your boy Dallin Hall. That's 2 now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's my boy.
You guys are roommates, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so so tell us about Dallin as the roommate. What's Dallin like as a roommate?
Okay, so it's roommate on the road. So like I live like Foose, Tiki, and Trey.
Okay.
But on the road, we're roomies. But, you know, I guess we're super dialed in, and he of course is. And, you know, like I love it. Like it makes me so happy because it's just like somebody's got to be right there in that moment, and he just found a way to get a little niche in that moment, which is awesome.
And it's special that he's getting these looks at the end of the game. Because it's not like you're just a bunch of freshmen, hey, we have to go to a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it twice now.
Yeah.
What is it about him as his teammate that you see is special in him? And we're excited that you and him and Tanner the next 4 years are together here.
Yeah, no, he just poised in that moment. He's not freaking out. He just I don't know, he just knows just to breathe and to relax and to just how to get it done.
And he gets to his right hand, and he is good.
Yeah,
tip it back in.
You can't let him go to the right.
One of the things that really stood out to me, and I think the two players that I noticed it the most, you, of course, and Rudy, and that was driving to the basket. You were killing them going to the rim. If you weren't scoring, you were getting fouled. I noticed that it felt like, not that you hadn't gone to the rim before, but I felt like you were making a concerted effort to do that. Was that a concerted effort, or is that just what the defense was giving you? Because it obviously worked to perfection.
No, it was a specific thing. You know, like it's been kind of rough. It's been 2 years back from a mission, and just finally I felt the aggression that I've been waiting for. Like it's been frustrating, you know, like.
Physically for you?
Yeah, just been frustrating because it's just I haven't been able to attack how I usually have, and but this one was an important one, and you know, like I had to have like a little regroup moment after the UVU game. I had to go home and got in the gym with my dad and just the church gym, and you know, like we just got back to the roots, and that was the game plan, is just doing it with more aggression. Going into this game.
Tell me more about that, because you probably weren't in a great spot after Wednesday night, not only as a team, but you start, you go for 3, you don't score. Yeah. You get in the gym. How did you respond in the way you were able to put up a 10-6-3 against a ranked team right there?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to not just trying to be passive around the three-point line and trying to just shoot threes, but just giving what the game, using what the game gives you. That's honestly like what I was like just really focused on, is through talking to my dad, and to Marty Haas is a big mentor for me as well.
Did you play for his
I did.
club team? Nice.
Yeah, and so like just trying to focus on scoring in the different ways instead of just relying on the three, which is going to be there, and it's not going to be there sometimes.
Look, carpet or no carpet, getting right, going back to the church game, it works every time, right?
It does. It does. The holy practice right there.
Okay, so let's talk about the 2 games this week. Obviously, there's Utah on Saturday, but you got a game first against Western Oregon. Take us through the thought process of a pretty important week with finals going on, by the way.
No, it's been crazy. But like honestly, like as you can see, like across college basketball, it's not just these powerhouse teams. Like every team is good, and I didn't really know, like, I don't know if it's just different now or what, but like, there's no team that you can just, like, as we've learned, just kind of sleep on. I don't know, like, we're just starting our scout on Western Oregon, but they're going to be good, you know, and it's definitely kind of a little bit of a trap game too with Utah coming up this week, but we're all focused on winning our game on Thursday first. We'll take care of business, and then we'll move on.
Now, when you say you went back to the church, your parents moved into my steak.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you go to the steak center?
Of course, there was tables set up, but we found it. We found it.
Trying to get buckets.
I'm sure it was the elder school basketball.
Elder school activity. Did you go to our
yeah, exactly.
Invite me next time. It's down the street.
Yeah.
I'll show up, man. That'll be awesome. Talking to Richie Saunders on BYU SportsNation. Where do you get your juice from? Because certainly your energy, to me, is your greatest attribute.
You know, like my dad and mom have just taught me how to work, and they're just on and off the court. But you know, like every opportunity that I get, I want to do as best as I can with. And you know, like my dad has always taught me that it's every second is an interview, every opportunity given is a test, and I just don't want to miss these opportunities, and I want to do well with the opportunities that I've been so fortunate enough to have, honestly.
Let's go back to the win over Creighton. What was that last 2 minutes like with the turnovers? And how, like, take us through, as being a player on the floor, what that felt like.
Yeah, it was crazy. You know, me and Gideon both fouled out, and just having to watch it from the sideline, but just putting my trust in my teammates. Like that's what it is just trusting these guys to eventually somehow pull it out. But it was stressful. Like, just shows a lot of room where we need to grow. And again, like we've already watched an hour of film today, and we're ready just to get better. That's what it's all about.
Now, clarify some things for the Twitter world that just assumes certain things. You guys work on breaking your press, do you not?
Yes.
Okay, it just broke down. 6 turnovers in 2:14 was tough, right? Luckily, you win. We're talking about a win. It's all good. But during that stretch, I guess, what do you guys need to do to perhaps not allow that 11-point lead to go away, right?
Well, just work on it more. But again, we pulled it out. You know, like people can say whatever they want to say, but one way or another, we pulled it out. And, you know, like, we work so hard, and we'll continue to work so hard. And specifically now, at least we know what we need to do for the future to prepare. But there's no question about, like, there's no days off. We're working, you know, like, we're going to keep working on this press break. And that's so it doesn't happen again, you know.
All right, so I referenced this a second ago. Finals this week. Take us through what this week's like. How many have you taken? Like, do you have any today? Like, are we keeping you from a final literally right now doing this interview?
No, just study.
No. We would never do something.
They would never.
Like, this is a big deal, right?
Yeah, and BYU is no joke. These finals are tough. I've had one last week, and then I have one tomorrow, and then 2 on Wednesday.
Which one have you already had?
Biology.
Which is the one tomorrow?
Oh, biology.
French.
Oh.
So it's tough, but I got a lot of studying to do. That's for sure.
Okay, well, good luck. Next, do you ride a unicycle? Did I read that?
I have.
Really?
Yeah, I do. It's super random. Like, it was kind of a joke that I put that in there. But
now everyone asks you about it.
Yeah, but like I do it. I got used to it when I was little. It's been a couple of years since I've gone on.
I see a weirdly high number of people on unicycles on campus.
I've seen that too. Going down the ramps, and I'm like, I can get on, but I can't do anything.
There's some characters, yeah. Ramps are next level. Justin Sorensen in 2011 entered an interview with me on a unicycle.
Really?
We might have to recreate
Let's do it.
Well, Richie, BYU SportsNation, karma to you. Good luck this week with finals in Western Oregon on Thursday night.
Thank you so much, Richie.
And that team up north Saturday.
That's right. All right, BYU basketball hosts Western Oregon on Thursday. Coverage begins with BYU SportsNation game day at 8 Eastern on BYU TV.
And did the best player for Creighton not playing kill my chances in fantasy? The answer is no. We'll recap the carnage after the break.
The carnage.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork offers a large inventory of Ford vehicles, including a selection of cars and trucks, providing a range of transportation choices. From the Ford Fusion sedan and the Edge crossover SUV to a range of pickups including the F-150. Each product line comes with options to enhance performance, comfort, and safety. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Hi, Lauren Daigle here.
It's John Legend here.
Hi, everybody. It's Kristen Chenoweth.
Kelly O'Hara here.
Merry Christmas from all of us at BYU TV.
Merry Christmas from everyone at BYU TV. Happy holidays from everyone at BYU TV.
Merry Christmas from all of us here at BYU TV.
Merry Christmas from all of us at BYU TV.
Happy holidays from everyone at BYU TV.
This is
for you. An incredible woman who has helped thousands of families, all while taking care of her own son with autism.
I don't even know the last time they've had a holiday with their kids or grandkids.
Oh my God. Oh.
There is just one more thing that we would like to celebrate with you.
Oh my goodness.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation is on demand. Download the free BYU TV and BYU Radio apps or listen to the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review while you're there.
All right, basketball fantasy recap for BYU Sports Nation here.
Oh.
I had a 10-point
You mean I
lead.
get to do another segment based off of stats that I had absolutely nothing to do with?
No. I had a 10-point lead going into the weekend. Luckily, Lauren Gustin and Rudy Williams put up 36 each for me. And I got up to 191 total. How'd Spence's team do?
Spencer, are we going with the 74 or the 101 at the bottom?
It's the number in parentheses of what they did over the weekend.
Okay. Yeah, so 74?
I won by 16.
Yeah.
Despite Ryan Kalkbrenner not playing. Now, Spence did pick Spencer Johnson, who didn't play in 2 games.
Oh, 175 to 191. Yes, I didn't go further down on the script.
If Spencer has a player who's healthy, he probably beats him. Okay, because Ryan Kalkbrenner didn't play.
Correct.
He had 1 fewer game worth, about 16 points, depending on how they do. But yeah, it was a battle. Lauren Gustin, tremendous performance. Foose was nice as well. The Kalkbrenner news got BYU the win, though, probably in the game, which is more important than our silly other games.
So happy for you to win this.
But I do love this game. I didn't win in football.
I had nothing to do with it.
The first one in basketball. Let's go.
All right, first win of the year. First win.
Question of the day is the win over Creighton a turning point for BYU basketball and my fantasy basketball?
I thought you were going to say, is the win in fantasy a turning point for me?
For me, personally. Our lead voice of the day, presented by PAX, Healthcare Elevated. Brendan Smith on Twitter. I don't know anything about this team anymore. I'm just here for the ride. There's a certain amount of truth to that. There really is.
That's my thought on the Big 12 and whether or not Texas and Oklahoma are in. I'm just here for the ride.
There you go. Today's Rise and Shout Out is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. To former BYU rugby player and graduate, Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach, hospitalized this weekend in critical condition after a heart attack. We hope the best for Mike. Hope that he gets through this. Certainly one of the best personalities in all of college football. So our best thoughts, prayers, and wishes go towards Mike Leach and his family.
And you've had a chance to talk with him.
Yeah, in 2009, he flew out to the BYU rugby game to
really
see the
cool.
national championship game. We spoke for a few minutes. Couldn't have been nicer. He was great.
Yes,
and he was exactly like you see him on TV.
Yeah, that's cool.
Our thanks to today's guests, Trevor Matich and Richie Saunders.
Conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This and all of our shows are on demand on BYUSN.com.
Sorry to Dennis, we ran out of time. For Jason, I'm Jarom. Shout out to Sean Lindquist. Go Cougs. BYU gets it done in Vegas. Much more coming up this week as we get ready for the New Mexico Bowl.